Hanny Time. A daily look at sports from our resident historian. Your sports break during your lunch break. Now, here's Charles Hannegriff.
Afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Hanny Time. This is number 2. Along with Mario and Danny, I'm Charles Hannegriff. Thank you for being with us. It is cut down day in the NFL. Everybody got to be down to 53 by the time the clock hits 3 o'clock Central Time. And the Saints making a move here a couple hours ago that came as a surprise to many, many people outside the organization. Less of a surprise to those that cover the team on a daily basis, but nevertheless something that is going to get everybody's attention. The Saints have traded Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and a 7th-round pick in 2025 to the Philadelphia Eagles for a 5th-round pick in 2023 and one of the 2 6th-round picks that the Eagles have in 2024, whichever is the worst of the 2 that they have. So on the surface, you look at this trade, and for the 2022 Saints, this trade stinks. They are getting nothing today on paper that will help the 2022 Saints on the field. Now, off the field is a different thing. We can get into that in a minute, but just for a team like New Orleans that is always playing for now, the Saints usually don't make moves that are far-reaching into the future. The number of times they've traded down in the draft for additional draft picks, it's almost never. The times that they have taken a hit on a contract now so that they can save the money later, they almost never do that. The Saints front office plays for now. They have pretty much this entire regime with Sean Payton and Mickey Loomis and even now with Payton gone. They play for now. This trade is not for now. When the Saints take the field against the Falcons, they will be without a player that could have helped them win that game. So why would the Saints do this? Can I do my Brian Windhorst? Why would they do this? Well, there's a few reasons. The easiest one to swallow here is that Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's contract was coming up at the end of this year. It was no secret that he wanted a new deal and he wanted plenty money. He had what they call now a hold-in. Used to call them holdouts, okay? You just wouldn't report to camp. You were not happy about your contract. Now they call them hold-ins. You go into camp, you sit there, and you're just held out of certain aspects of practice or whatever. So he was essentially what was referred to as a hold-in. And the Saints weren't budging. In my mind, the Saints made up their mind on Chauncey Gardner-Johnson quite a while ago, which was because of some of the moves that they've made in this offseason, that if they weren't going to pay him, what were their options? One of the options, you say, was to keep Gardner-Johnson on this team and just let the contract play out. That would have been better, probably. Would have been better on the field for sure for the 2022 Saints. Would it have been better off the field? That's debatable. Because if you know anything about Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, the way he plays, hell, the way he lives, guy's got an edge to him. It's one of the things that makes him a really, really good football player. He don't back down from anybody. He's going to get under your skin. We've seen some of the things on the field that have been a definite asset to the Saints in the way he has played. Any limits that he might have as a football player physically, he more than made up for with the mental aspect of the game. He was involved in one of the stranger altercations that I've ever heard of in professional football. He got into a fight with Mike Thomas at practice. Mike Thomas was a superstar. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was a good player, a scrappy player, a guy who came in and overperformed his draft choice. What happens when you get a guy that is a good football player that's on your roster that gets in a fight with a superstar? You suspend the role player. You suspend the fourth-round pick. You don't suspend the superstar. Gardner Johnson got under Thomas's skin so bad, and Thomas reacted in such a way, the Saints suspended Thomas. That doesn't ever happen. The team always sides with the superstar. So if you think that Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was going to play out this season knowing that his contract was not going to be extended or a new deal entirely, then you don't understand the player. The player was not going to sit quietly. The player was going to have this as an issue the entire season. Now, would that have been worth it? You say, listen, man, chirp all you want. We need that cat out on the field on Sundays. I would have understood that. Actually, would have kind of been my preference. Take somebody in that locker room, head coach, assistant coach, veteran, whatever it was, and keep him focused on just the football and try to downplay the whole contract situation. Did the Saints think that anybody could do that? Probably not. But New Orleans knew this a while back. Did it raise your eyebrows when New Orleans kept Bradley Roby? It certainly did for me, because Roby was brought in last year when they didn't know if they had enough cornerbacks. They didn't know if Paulson Adebo could play at a high level. They found out in a hurry, but they didn't know when they made the trade for Roby. And so Roby had a very limited role last year compared to what his reputation was in the league and what the Saints gave up for him. When they kept him at the end of the season, it was like, ooh, okay. They got a lot tied up in this guy, but he didn't really contribute all that much. Would it be time to move on? Then they drafted Alontae Taylor, using a premium draft choice on him. And at that point, you can say, okay, well, they've kind of decided that they're not going to pay Gardner Johnson. They have already drafted his replacement. But that could have been a year from now. Wasn't a guarantee that they were going to move him now. They might have decided, hey, listen, we'll just deal with the off-the-field fallout with him, and at the end of the season, we'll let him walk. Probably get some kind of compensatory pick. The compensatory picks depend on what your balance is of players that you've signed and players that you've lost. So it's not a guarantee. The 5 and the 6 that they got today are a guarantee. Basically, that's for free. 5th round and 6th round picks are, in a trade situation, are not much more than placeholders. You may get a hit. You may draft the next Marcus Colston with one of those picks, but probably not. This is basically a way to get the player off of your team. So they decided that they weren't going to pay him. And then they decided that they had found at least a couple of players that they felt were going to be able to contribute more on this team, one in Bradley Roby than he did on last year's team, and on Alontae Taylor to use a draft choice like that. There's something else that has happened during this camp that I think has given them a little bit more confidence to do this, and that is they've gotten some really strong play from Justin Evans, just another player back there. Now, going into Evans was one of the players that going into today, I thought was really interesting. I thought he was right on the bubble. I don't anymore. I think he's now definitely going to make the team. Evans is an interesting case. He was a very good player for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers back in 2017 and 2018. But he hasn't played in 3 years. He had an Achilles injury. He failed a physical over in Tampa, and he missed the entire 2021 season before he signed this one-year contract with the Saints. The Saints brought him in like, okay, he's only 27 years old. 3 years ago, this guy was a pretty good football player. He has done the equivalent of a sabbatical, not of his own doing, with the injuries. Does he have anything left? Well, throughout camp, Justin Evans has shown that he's got some football left in him. that he is recovered from those things that cost him the better part of 3 football seasons. 3 football seasons is an eternity. But they've got a little bit there. The Saints are deep in the secondary. Losing this guy hurts, though, because they gave him away. They gave him away for all the reasons I just said. They did not feel like disrupting the team chemistry with what Gardner Johnson was likely to do in a year where he did not have a contract. They were able to get something, little as it was, the 5 and the 6, and not worry about a compensatory pick down the road. And they have his replacements on the roster. Now, if that combination of Alontae Taylor or Justin Evans, Bradley Roby doesn't play as well as what Gardner Johnson would have done this year, then you'll say, well, the trade didn't work out the way you wanted. But going back to the 3 seasons where the Saints went 7-9, 7-9, 7-9, they decided to make a culture change. And simply anybody that was going to be disruptive in the locker room, they were going to move, even if they had to move them at a discount. You can agree or disagree with the strategy, but it's what they've done. They moved Junior Gillette for this reason. They moved Jimmy Graham for this reason. Those are the 2 that come immediately to mind, but they certainly weren't the only 2 that the Saints moved. I would have rathered they work it out and keep Gardner Johnson on the team. But I understand what they're doing. They're maintaining that culture. And it simply was going to come to an end. Whether it was going to come to an end this year, before the season, or after the season, that was a decision the Saints had to make. They wanted to look in training camp to see if they had able-bodied replacements. They obviously feel like they do. Because for as big of a headache as he might be, if they didn't feel like they had the guys to go on this year's team, not about next year, on this year's team, then I don't think they would have moved him. I think they would have just kind of gritted their teeth a little bit and said, all right, we'll deal with, your chirping in exchange for what you're going to bring on the field. They decided in this camp they've got enough, so they decided to move him. Deadline coming in about 2 hours and 50 minutes. We're going to talk with Chris Rozvaglu from Boot Crew Media. He covers the Saints, and he will be with us here when we come back. We'll take a look at who's going to make this team, what we think will happen as the deadline approaches, and some other moves around the NFL. I want to touch in on Jimmy Garoppolo's deal that he cut yesterday with the San Francisco 49ers. This is Hanny Time, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Our listeners fire up their opinions on the jimsfirearms.net hotline at 499-1045. Keep listening for your next chance to shoot us your thoughts with the jimsfirearms.net hotline on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is a house call. This is a follow-up appointment. This is a diabetes checkup. This isn't just more convenient care, it's more advanced care. This is innovating healthcare at Louisiana's #1 hospital, Auctioner.
ServiceMaster Elite create clean, disinfected work environments. As a local business, we take pride in serving the New Orleans and Baton Rouge areas. Our cleaning protocols follow CDC and OSHA standards for healthcare settings, offices, senior living, restaurants, and industrial plants. Contact ServiceMaster Elite to get your operation ready for reopening with germ disinfection cleaning. ServiceMaster Elite, the trusted choice in professional cleaning since 1996.
It's no secret, the best oysters in Baton Rouge are at Jolie Pearl Oyster Bar. Enjoy mouth-watering South Louisiana flavor and oysters from all over the country. And don't forget our nightly drink specials. Jolie Pearl Oyster Bar, located in downtown Baton Rouge.
Oh, hey, what's up? It's Big D and Bubba, 100.7 The Tiger Morning Show. We'd love for you to join us every weekday, 4 a.m. till 9 a.m.
Yeah, everything you want in a show. Country music. We got laughs. We got celebrity in-studio guests. We just need you.
Join us every weekday morning, 4 a.m. to 9 a.m., right where it all started.
That's right. Louisiana's country station, 100.7 The Tiger.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Eli's always been into grilling. It took us a while to see it, but the signs were there.
What are you doing, Eli?
I knew grilling was my thing. I have been talking about it throughout my career.
Happy with the results?
I am. Got the new grill from barbecueguys.com. It performed great.
My advice, as I always told my boys,
do more of what you're born to do.
Barbecue Guys, for those who were born to grill.
You want cheese on your burger, Pops?
I'll take a little cheese.
Crime has serious consequences, but anyone can make a mistake. If you find yourself in trouble with the law, know that you have rights, and it's okay to demand them. The law offices of O.C. Brown are here to protect you and your rights. Felony or misdemeanor, DUI or drug charge. No matter what crime you're accused of, you still have rights. Let the law offices of O.C. Brown uphold them. Call 225-343-1111. Your law firm for a lifetime.
Are you a licensed contractor? There's lots of good contractors in Louisiana doing work the right way, but unfortunately, too many unlicensed contractors are working outside the licensing requirements. Working as a contractor in Louisiana requires a license for the company doing the work. The Louisiana State Licensing Board for Contractors wants to help you get licensed to allow you to conduct work legally. It's not difficult to get the license. We can help you. Go to lacontractor.org for more information.
Tuesday edition of Hunt and Hill here from Sharif Ishak on the black and gold, and start getting you ready for LSU and Florida State. Hunt and Hill 1 to 3 weekdays on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is Anytime with Charles Hannegriff on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Bring in Chris Rosvoglo from Boot Crew Media covering the New Orleans Saints. Chris, how you doing? Good afternoon.
Doing well. Thank you for having me.
All right, let's talk about the Chauncey Gardner-Johnson trade to Philadelphia. Obviously, the sides were not going to come together on a contract, and the Saints decided to make a move now rather than later. Your take on the trade?
Yeah, look, it's one of those that you almost can't sugarcoat your initial reaction, right? It's disappointing in the fact that he won't be on the New Orleans Saints this season. It definitely kind of takes a little bit of a hit, I would say, from maybe the tenacity level that you expect this defense to play with. You know, losing Gardner-Johnson does affect it. I think the biggest takeaway for me is kind of what little they got back in return. You think when you trade a player of this caliber and you hear that the Eagles plan on using that safety, maybe they would give up maybe a third-round pick or so, but instead it comes down to being, a fifth-round pick and one of their sixth-round picks that Philly has. And the return there is just not great, and this is going to put pressure on other players to step up. But I get from New Orleans' perspective, you get something rather than nothing if you lose them in free agency. But I just don't think they've got a great return for a player of C.J. Gardner-Johnson's caliber.
Were they planning for this going back almost to the end of last season to bring Bradley Roby back, who had a minimal impact on last year's team, to draft Alontae Taylor, and then to take a good long look at Justin Evans, who hadn't played in 3 years? They just kind of want to make sure that what they had in training camp could make up for the loss if they decided to move him?
I mean, I think that's definitely part of it, right? I think the Bradley Roby part of this whole thing, it was interesting because when they were trying to shed salary, people talked about, hey, you can get rid of Bradley Roby and they'll free up about $8-9 million. The Saints said, no, we still want him on the roster. And He's played really well in training camp. He's a player they think they can kind of plug and play into that starting lineup, and he'll do well. And I expect him to do well for the Saints. But the Alontae Taylor move was one of those that kind of raised a couple of eyebrows and said, okay, what's the thought process here? And for New Orleans, that kind of gives you maybe a long-term replacement, maybe for C.J. Gardner-Johnson and his versatility. He could play in the slot. He could play outside. That's a move there. You mentioned Justin Evans. This is a former second-round pick who has played really well in the preseason. He's forced a pair of turnovers in the preseason, and I think this is a player that if he could reach his full potential, that gives you more depth. So I definitely think the Saints did a good job of saying, hey, we have enough pieces where if, negotiations go sideways and we have to get rid of him, then we do have the necessary pieces to keep this defense afloat. I don't know if they, every move they made, like bringing in Evans was, to say, oh, okay, now we have a Gardner-Johnson replacement. I do think the Alontae Taylor one might have been their way of hinting at it. But overall, I do agree. The overall consensus would be that this is still a really talented secondary. And to, people want to knock whether or not they should have made this trade. You also give credit to the fact that they've brought enough depth here that when you do make a trade like this, we're still looking at this secondary and saying, all right, there is a lot of talent to work with.
All right, let me play the other side for a second. Let's say that your idea was take the football part of this and just deal with the rest of it. In other words, having Gardner-Johnson on this team makes them a better team. And if he's going to, if he's going to be a locker room chirper about his contract all year, then just live with it. It's worth having the headache to have the player, and the heck with the 5th and 6th round picks, which are basically placeholders. Does that argument carry any weight with you?
Look, I think that argument definitely carries weight depending on how this season starts playing out early on, especially if we see teams start attacking the Saints in the slot. Then you're like, okay, was it really worth getting rid of him for picks? To your point that, let's be real, people move 5th and 6th round picks all the time to move up a couple of spots in the draft. I mean, it's very unlikely those picks end up panning out to be someone that can either match or even surpass the production that Gardner-Johnson would ever give you. So I do agree with that. I think what would be interesting is how much of a headache, if it was one, was it for the Saints? Was it to the point where the coaching staff said, oh, we just can't have him in that building? If it ever reaches that point, then I always understand why the team would make that move. To your point, though, if it really wasn't a huge headache, I think I would much rather have Gardner-Johnson on the team this year than a 5th and 6th round pick for next year. That really doesn't move the needle much.
That's where I am. I understand the headache he would have caused. I would have dealt with the headache to keep the player. But that's me. Let's move on. The Saints have got to get down to 53 by 3 o'clock today. What are the toughest spots? What are the toughest cuts and the toughest keeps that you see as we approach the deadline?
It's crazy how much of an 180 this position group has made, but I think what the Saints are going to decide to do at receiver, and if a final move hasn't been made yet, that's going to be so interesting to me, because that the first 3 spots, Michael Thomas, Jarvis Landry, Chris Olave, those are already locked up. We feel pretty good about Deontay Hardy, obviously making the roster between his receiving skills and his return man skills. But the number 5 spot on the depth chart, that's so interesting because you have Marquez Callaway, who has always played well in the preseason. He did, decently well last year in spots, and you'd imagine he makes the final 53. And then if they do bring a 6th, is it Traquan Smith and stash to IR? Is it keeping Kirk Merritt, who has shown flexibility at playing wide receiver, being on the special teams return, playing running back during practice for about a week? There is that versatility there that, hey, maybe he can be a Ty Montgomery type of player for the Saints. So I think that's where one of their toughest roster decisions will be made. And then I think another one is the tight end spot. How many tight ends do you want to hold? Adam Troutman's making it. Taysom Hill's making it. And Juwan Johnson has really improved in training camp. I think this is a player that they think maybe can develop into a nice piece. Do you also keep Nick Vannett? Do you hold 4 tight ends? That's something that I'm looking forward to. And then another spot for me is, and I don't know how it really unfolds because it comes down to how the Saints feel about the rest of the O-line. But with Trevor Penning going down, I imagine he goes to IR. Do the Saints feel good about an undrafted rookie like Lewis Kidd and feel good about bringing him on the main roster? Or is that someone that they can cut and hopefully get back to the practice squad? So I think from an offensive personnel standpoint, they have a lot of tough decisions to make, but none tougher than how do you handle the bottom of the wide receiver depth chart?
Chris Rosvoglu from Boot Crew Media covering the Saints is our guest. Let's talk about Merritt for a second. And when they moved him to running back, a week and a half ago, I was reminded when Michael Lewis was trying to make the Saints, and when they got down to the final cuts, the beer man had just turned everybody's head to the point where Jim Haslett went around to each of his assistant coaches, says, "Who do you want to keep?" And when they gave him a list, he said, "If you want to keep your last guy, we can't keep Michael Lewis." And all of them said, "No, we want to keep Michael Lewis. We'll find a way to get by with one less guy." It almost seems like they're looking for any way they can to keep Kirk Merritt on this team. Running back, wide receiver, whatever it is, whatever role he plays on special teams. Is his roster spot secure in your opinion right now?
I really don't, because of how well Callaway's come on the last couple weeks. I thought Callaway was someone who maybe 2 weeks ago, I would say he was actually on the roster bubble, which would be crazy to think about because there were moments last year where he was wide receiver 1 for this team, but he wasn't making enough impact plays in training camp or the preseason. And it got to that point where, all right, was he going to make the roster? But he came on strong the last couple of weeks. He was really good in the final game against the Chargers. And I think that there's that argument here that do they really want to dress 6 wide receivers? I mean, if you dress 6 of them, one of them is definitely not seeing any targets, and the fifth one probably isn't seeing many either. So I think there really is that tough call. But to your point, when you move Kirk Merritt all around the field, you're kind of telling us that you're looking for any possible way to get him on the roster, right? You're looking at him at return man. You're looking at him at running back. And I think that he made such a compelling argument over the last couple of weeks, as well as playing multiple positions, that it really is a tough spot for them. And, it comes down to what do they value. And also I'll throw Traquan Smith's name in the mix in the sense that I don't know if he's really a lock right now. He is hurt, and maybe that injury might save him in the sense that they could keep him on the 53, throw him to IR, and maybe they'll see him in 4 or 5 weeks from now. But they really have a tough call to make. And they have to remember, whatever call they make here, I don't think they're going to have the luxury of bringing any of these guys back on the practice squad, whether it were Callaway or Traquan or Merritt released. I'd imagine a team's seen enough throughout the preseason to say, okay, that guy's good enough to make our roster. So the Saints went from having a depleted receiving core to almost an embarrassment of riches right now. And as much as it would be a great story for Kirk Merritt to make the roster, I can't say in good faith that he definitely has his spot secure.
What do we know about the Trevor Penning injury 4 days after it happened? Is it IR with the IR to return is the likely destination for him?
It definitely seems to be the likely destination for him. I think the real question comes down to the Saints is how comfortable do they feel with him coming back later this year? And by later this year, I mean maybe December, because it is a really serious injury. And with a torn ligament in your foot, if it's not healing the right way, this could be one where do the Saints say, hey, let's just redshirt him the whole year? But regardless, he's going to end up on IR. It's just a matter of whether or not they feel comfortable with that IR designated to return and actually feel like he can return to this lineup, which obviously is a bummer. He is someone who's developed so quickly over the last couple of weeks, and I think it was a matter of time before he kind of slid into the starting lineup. But yeah, I'd say IR is definitely the spot for Trevor Penning right now.
So with that in mind, when the final roster cuts are made at 3 o'clock today, everywhere else around the league, is it safe to say that the Saints are going to be aggressive in the tackle market?
I mean, I think they definitely should look around. There are teams that have kind of floated out names for trades, and I think if you're the Saints, you kind of hope that, hey, maybe one of those players gets cut. I know Jenkins from the Chicago Bears has been mentioned around, and if that's a player that gets cut, I could see the Saints just shopping for offensive line depth in general. But the good thing is James Hurst did return to practice earlier this week, and you could really pencil him in as the starter and feel somewhat confident there. And to kind of double down on getting somewhat good news, Landon Young came back. And Landon Young, people might forget about him, but he's a player that the Saints have developed pretty well so far in training camp, and he might not be a household name yet, but, if the Saints feel confident enough in him, then they might just let that pairing figure it out at left tackle. So I do expect them to explore the market. I just don't expect them to be, uber aggressive in the sense that they will go make a move via trade. I think they'll kind of stalk the market to see if someone gets released that was maybe mentioned in trade talks for a 6 or 7 round pick, and maybe they can go attack there. But I think that they feel really good with Hurst right now, and Young is improving, and it's a matter of back to Penning. If this is someone who you think can return later, then maybe the Saints aren't as aggressive as offensive tackle. But I would be looking at the market for offensive tackle. And you know what? I'd also be looking, running backs get cut all the time. If you're the Saints, maybe see who also ends up there.
Chris Rosvoglu is our guest from Boot Crew Media. Let's talk about the linebackers, because the Saints have spent the entire camp auditioning lots of linebackers, veterans and young players alike. So where are we? And if you could update where we are on the Chase Hansen injury.
Yeah, for Hansen, it's pretty tough because this is a guy who I mean, the preseason opener, I don't know if I've ever seen a player really come out with their hair on fire in a sense that he just looked great. And you almost thought, hey, he's going to make the 53. I think that with him missing so much time, I feel like right now, DeMario and Werner are going to make the roster at linebacker. I think Caden Ellis really has a really good, I would say, hold on him getting there. But I also think that there's guys like Andrew Dowell who've done enough that they really are going to have to make this roster, and the Saints are going to be tough, to not put them there because of the impact they bring on special teams. So a lot of it comes down to, do you want to add a sixth linebacker? Because I think Werner's here. I think Ellis is here. Demario Davis is here. Eric Wilson's going to make the roster. I think Andrew Dowell. So I think for Hanson, I think unfortunately this is the end of the road for at least right now. He could always come back, but I think he won't make the initial 53. And I kind of feel good about that 5 being, the Saints linebacker core. And if they were to keep one more, maybe it'd be Sewell. So I think Hanson, unfortunately, that injury kind of stumped him, and it's nothing long-term. He will play football again this year. I just don't know if he'll be for the New Orleans Saints.
And this is the end of the line for Zach Bond with the Saints. A third-round pick 2 years ago. A lot of people, I remember the mocks that year, a lot of people thought he might be a late first-round pick. The Saints got him in the third, but it just has never seemed to click for him.
It hasn't. And that will be one of the big names when, the Saints cut down their final 53. They'll probably be one of the big names that people talk about getting released, but they just haven't been able to find a way to get him on the field and make him make an impact. And to your point, this was a player that when he slipped out of the first round, people were surprised. And when the Saints took him in the third round, this was a player that you'd say, hey, if the vision's right, he could be a playmaker. It just hasn't developed, and it's unfortunate. And I hope he finds somewhere where he could, get in the right scheme and kind of maximize his potential. But it's not going to happen in New Orleans.
Last thing, Ian Book may be headed to the practice squad. I don't want to pile on here, Chris, but I'd have to almost ask why at this point. To me, this is a player that's not going to be a quarterback in the NFL. Just what we've seen last year and this year. I understand you put him on the practice squad. It's basically a free move, but I can't ever see a scenario where Ian Book's going to be a quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. And so I'm wondering if that practice squad spot might not be better served to go somewhere else.
I think that's actually a totally fair, question. And I think that for me, I kind of agree with you. I haven't seen enough from Ian Book to even say that I can see him being, a serviceable backup, right? Like we've seen enough to say, the dream of him becoming a starter is probably not happening, but even a backup quarterback, can he become a Chase Daniel? I haven't even seen that.
No.
And that is unfortunate because this is a player who had such a great career at Notre Dame. But, I think for the Saints, the reason you bring him back to the practice squad is just that in case of emergency, we go through a bunch of quarterbacks and we need him. But even then, if Jameis goes down, it's Andy Dalton. And if, you lose both of them, Taysom Hill's probably going from tight end to quarterback and playing. So the event that Ian Book actually plays, I just don't see it. So I think that definitely is a fair question. And I think depending on how the Saints were to, shuffle around their roster, yeah, maybe that spot could be better served. But I think that because he's still 24 years old and he does know the system, he's kind of going to be in that emergency quarterback role on the practice squad. But I just can't see a situation where he ends up actually starting for this team.
Chris, if Jameis Winston, Andy Dalton, and Taysom Hill all walked up to a microphone this afternoon and simultaneously retired, the Saints would be working the phones, and Ian Book still wouldn't be the quarterback. I mean, they would, at that point, you're calling Cam Newton, okay? You're calling somebody, but it's not going to be him. So if they keep him, I guess I get it. It's a practice squad deal, but I can't. Like I said, I don't want to pile on, but I just can't see the guy ever being a quarterback in the NFL. Boot Crew Media, you can catch a lot of Chris's stuff there, bootcrewmedia.com. A lot of Saints stuff, a lot of Pelican stuff on there as well as they inch towards training camp. But we enjoyed the conversation. We'll certainly have you back, Chris. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
And we'll take a break. More on NFL Cutdown Day when we come back. This is Hanny Time, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
In times of need, get a full list of phone numbers, websites, and other important emergency information on the Demco Stormwatch page at 1045ESPN.com.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
This isn't just another day. It's so much more. Kelly's life was put on hold when her auctioneer primary care doctor discovered a rare blood disorder. Her doctor connected her to an auctioneer care team of cancer, heart, and kidney specialists. With multiple primary care locations around Baton Rouge, same-day appointments, and online scheduling, we're relentless about keeping you healthy. Auctioneer Baton Rouge, innovating healthcare for Kelly.
I'm Jay Ducote. I grew up learning how to cook at LSU tailgate parties and right in my own backyard. And I created JD's Louisiana products to bring that Louisiana flavor to you at home for your backyard cookout. JD's Louisiana barbecue sauce, Louisiana molasses mustard, spicy and sweet barbecue rub, and more are available at your local supermarkets or by logging on to jducote.com/shop. Put in promo code CST for 25% off at checkout.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
ServiceMaster Elite create clean, disinfected work environments. As a local business, we take pride in serving the New Orleans and Baton Rouge areas. Our cleaning protocols follow CDC and OSHA standards for healthcare settings, offices, senior living, restaurants, and industrial plants. Contact ServiceMaster Elite to get your operation ready for reopening with germ disinfection cleaning. ServiceMaster Elite, the trusted choice in professional cleaning since 1996.
It's no secret. The best oysters in Baton Rouge are at Jolie Pearl Oyster Bar. Enjoy mouth-watering South Louisiana flavor and oysters from all over the country. And don't forget our nightly drink specials. Jolie Pearl Oyster Bar, located in downtown Baton Rouge.
Eli's always been into grilling. It took us a while to see it, but the signs were there.
What are you doing, Eli?
I knew grilling was my thing. I have been talking about it throughout my career.
Happy with the results?
I am. Got the new grill from barbecueguys.com. It performed great.
My advice, as I always told my boys,
do more of what you're born to do.
Barbecue Guys, for those who were born to grill.
You want cheese on your burger, Pops?
I'll take a little cheese.
Moscona inviting you to join us for Tuesday's AFR, presented by Insurance Network of Louisiana. It's cut down day in the NFL. How's the Saints roster looking? And Sean Salisbury joins us. Hopefully you will as well. 3 to 6, 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
This is Hanny Time, your sports break during your lunch break with Charles Hannegriff on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
When the Saints finish up at 3 o'clock, when all the cutdowns are done in the NFL, they're not going to have the best backup quarterback in the league anymore. A couple of weeks ago, I thought that they had the best backup quarterback in the league. Actually, a couple of days ago, I thought they might have the best backup quarterback in the league. They no longer have the best backup quarterback in the league because the best backup quarterback in the league is still with the San Francisco 49ers. This news came in yesterday afternoon late that Jimmy Garoppolo is staying with San Francisco. the deal is for far less than what his contract called for, but he was never going to play for that contract for this year's San Francisco 49ers. So this was there's a lot of moving pieces here because San Francisco wanted to move him for something reasonable, but there were never really any takers. The Deshaun Watson thing drug out in Cleveland long enough that the Browns never really got involved, and the Seahawks are tanking, okay? The Seahawks are tanking by roster. The Dolphins could take a page from this book. When they tried to tank a couple of years ago, they didn't tank properly. What you do, if you want to tank, you get rid of your all-star quarterback and don't replace him. That's how you tank in the NFL. Geno Smith and Drew Lock as your starting quarterbacks are tanking in the NFL. If the Seahawks wanted to compete this year, they would have gone out and tried to make a move somewhere. They decided they wanted to tank. They're looking at C.J. Stroud for next year, okay? So without anybody to really play ball with them, San Francisco just sent Jimmy Garoppolo into exile. They sent him off to some practice field. Hey, you go over there and shoot free throws, okay? And then they watched Trey Lance play. They're like, uh-oh. Now, I don't want to make too big of a deal out of preseason. And Lance he's a football baby. I mean, he's played so little, but he's got such an incredible upside. So this talent is just waiting to come out, but it takes some time. Trey Lance didn't get to play very much in college. He played one full season. The other season got wiped out by COVID, and he didn't play. He played a little bit, but not a ton his rookie year. I mean, the number of snaps that a first-round pick in the NFL draft, especially a top 3 pick in the NFL draft, would have played by this point in their career. Trey Lance has got far, far, far less experience. But they made their decision that they were going to go into the season with him as their starting quarterback, so they sent Garoppolo off to work by himself and said, we'll deal with this when the time comes up. And then they watched Lance play, and it's like, okay, maybe we better keep our insurance policy is. So Garoppolo gets a fully guaranteed base salary, and he gets $500,000 a game for every game that he's on the roster. So that's another $8.5 million if he stays on the field on the roster the entire season. And there's some incentives in there that he could pick up another $8 million. So no, it's not the $24 million that he would have had, but trust me when I tell you that the Niners were never going to pay that. And the reason they couldn't trade him is because nobody else was going to take that either. So you put him on a more palatable contract. And for the Niners, this is what they get. The Niners get the insurance policy that if Trey Lance really isn't ready to play, they've got a guy that's taken them to the NFC Championship game and the Super Bowl. Jimmy Garoppolo's winning percentage as a quarterback with at least 50 starts is the 6th best all time. Problem with Garoppolo is twofold. Number one, the Niners could never count on him to play an entire season. He was injury prone. And they also didn't feel like, and whether this is fair or not, that he could get them over the hump and actually win a Super Bowl. I would tell you that he was going to his second Super Bowl if a certain defensive back holds on to a surefire interception, but que sera. So what Garoppolo gets out of this is he gets this money. It's a decent amount of money. He gets a ready-made team if Lance falls on his face to go in there and prove one more time, hey, listen, somebody else should sign me. And then they can't tag him, and there's a no trade. So he gets to this offseason, and he controls his own destiny at that point. If Garoppolo does play and plays well, then he becomes a hot commodity on the free agent quarterback market. He gets another big deal. He gets to pick his own situation. For the 49ers, they get this insurance policy that this roster is a Super Bowl roster if the quarterback is good. I mean, it really is. I mean, they were an eyelash away last year, and you look at their schedule in the NFC West as opposed to the Rams, and the 49ers are a pretty attractive bet to win the division. Why? Because they play against the AFC East, and the Rams have to play the Bills, and the Niners get to play the Dolphins. And they play against the NFC Central, and the Rams have to play the Packers, and the 49ers get to play the Bears. And they play against the NFC East, and the Rams have to play the Cowboys, and the 49ers get to play the Commanders. Now, and in the rest of the schedule where you're playing everybody, and those are the individual games on the schedule where you're playing everybody. They're both playing the AFC West, so that's a wash. That whole division is good. They're also playing the NFC South. The Rams play. Who are the best two teams in the NFC South? The Bucs and the Saints. The Panthers and the Falcons are both in major rebuilds. The 49ers get the Saints and the Bucs at home. The Rams play the Saints and the Bucs on the road. So this is a San Francisco team that's in great shape to win this division if they get competent play at the quarterback position. So here's the rub. When do you make the move? Or do you make the move? In a perfect world for San Francisco, Trey Lance goes out there and he's the starting quarterback all year. You win the division, you make a deep run in the playoffs, and maybe he has that game in the playoffs that they don't think that Garoppolo is capable of having. Call it something like what Colin Kaepernick did for San Francisco years ago against Green Bay, where he had that monster playoff, that record-setting playoff game, and San Francisco advanced. That's what they're looking for. They don't think that Garoppolo is capable of doing that in a playoff game, taking over a game. Kaepernick took over that game. He was everything in that game. Well, in this case, the only problem you have now is that if you yank Trey Lance at some point, when you go back to him eventually, next year or whenever, what have you done to his psyche? Is he going to play this season now with an eye towards Jimmy Garoppolo? Again, Garoppolo hasn't even been in 49ers practice. He has been off on a side field working by himself. He hasn't been in the quarterback meetings. I don't know if when they gather the team, if you've ever been to football practice, at the end of the practice, they all gather around the coach. The coach says something, right, and then they go all together, 1, 2, 3, team. They even bringing in Garoppolo for that? Like, hey, Jimmy, we're done with practice. You can go home now. They're not even doing that. And then yesterday, it's like, hey, Jimmy, want to stick around? Yeah, I think so. So he's the best backup quarterback in football. How long before he's a starter? It was one of the more interesting stories of these last few days before cut down day, which is today at 3 o'clock. Take a break. We'll come back with your questions off of YouTube, plus a pick on tonight's game. This is Hanny Time, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This week on DropBiscuit.com or wherever you listen to podcasts is our new series, Pops, the Louis Armstrong story. Pops is brought to you by New Orleans & Company. Check out NewOrleans.com and come visit New Orleans.
This is a house call. This is a follow-up appointment. This is a diabetes checkup. This isn't just more convenient care, it's more advanced care. This is innovating healthcare at Louisiana's #1 hospital, Auctioner.
Oh, hey, what's up? It's Big D and Bubba, 100.7 The Tiger Morning Show. We'd love for you to join us every weekday, 4 a.m. till 9 a.m.
Yeah, everything you want in a show. Country music. We got laughs. We got celebrity in-studio guests. We just need you.
Join us every weekday morning, 4 a.m. to 9 a.m., right where it all started.
That's right. Louisiana's country station, 100.7 The Tiger.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals. But many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Crime has serious consequences, but anyone can make a mistake. If you find yourself in trouble with the law, know that you have rights, and it's okay to demand them. The law offices of O.C. Brown are here to protect you and your rights. Felony or misdemeanor, DUI or drug charge. No matter what crime you're accused of, you still have rights. Let the law offices of O.C. Brown uphold them. Call 225-343-1111. Your law firm for a lifetime.
Are you a licensed contractor? There's lots of good contractors in Louisiana doing work the right way, but unfortunately, too many unlicensed contractors are working outside the licensing requirements. Working as a contractor in Louisiana requires a license for the company doing the work. The Louisiana State Licensing Board for Contractors wants to help you get licensed to allow you to conduct work legally. It's not difficult to get the license. We can help you. Go to lacontractor.org for more information. Licensed contractors, it's the law.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
ServiceMaster Elite create clean, disinfected work environments. As a local business, we take pride in serving the New Orleans and Baton Rouge areas. Our cleaning protocols follow CDC and OSHA standards for healthcare settings, offices, senior living, restaurants, and industrial plants. Contact ServiceMaster Elite to get your operation ready for reopening with germ disinfection cleaning. ServiceMaster Elite, the trusted choice in professional cleaning since 1996.
It's no secret. The best oysters in Baton Rouge are at Jolie Pearl Oyster Bar. Enjoy mouth-watering South Louisiana flavor.
Jimmy out and Mike Delicano for the Tuesday edition of Game Time presented by Bet Rivers. We're at Mike Anderson's, the original Mike Anderson's, on Lee just off of Nicholson. 6 to 8 p.m. Game Time presented by Bet Rivers of 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is Hanny Time with Charles Hannegriff on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Carlos Rodon had not pitched poorly in like a month. And as soon as I picked him yesterday, he gets hit as hard as he's been hit in about 5 weeks and still only lost the game by a run. Doesn't get you any, doesn't get you anything extra for only losing by a run. But so we come back tonight. I hate to do this, but I'm gonna go against Aaron Nola and the Phillies tonight. Diamondbacks have won 4 straight, but that's not what. And Nola is pitching really well. He's had 1 bad outing in his last 5, and other than that, he's coming off of a complete game shutout against Cincinnati. But on the other side, Zach Gallen hasn't given up an earned run in the last 28 innings that he has pitched. I mean, this is zeros across the board. He's got a sub-1 ERA in the month of August, and Diamondbacks have won 4 straight. They got a little bit going, so they're home. They're coming back plus 120, and we'll take Gallen and the Diamondbacks tonight against Philadelphia. All right, let's see. We're going to take some questions here. What happened to Hunt Hill? So Hunt Hill are moved back to 1 to 3. Let me give you the schedule again because yesterday we were a little bit off because of the press conference. So here's how this is going to work. This show will be from noon to 1 every day except football Mondays during the season when Brian Kelly has a press conference, which is every week except the off week. On those days, we'll come on at 11, break in the middle for the Brian Kelly press conference, come back and finish it up until 1 o'clock. Every other day, we'll be on from 12 to 1. Hunt Hill will be on from 1 to 3. We'll be in studio every day except Fridays when we're going back out to Rufino's, and Jimmy and I will put together Football Friday back together. So that's what our schedule is, and what can I tell you? That's how we're moving forward. So that's good. By the way, the podcast is still going to drop 4 days a week. The Hannycast, you can get that at 104.5 ESPN, Drop Biscuit Studios. You can get that. Usually we'll drop it sometime mid-afternoon. I'm waiting for the rest of the cuts today to come through before we drop today's. But you can get the Hannycast Monday through Thursday, anytime, probably, like I said, mid-afternoon. So let's see. Nope, that's it. Okay. Mario, you good?
I have a question since I have a minute.
Go ahead.
Are you excited for your first Football Friday back at Rufino?
Yeah. So we do a lot of the college stuff. I'm going to bring a little bit of NFL to it as well in the noon hour. Plus, Richard Dixon's coming back in. He was a part of our Football Fridays the last time that we did this. So we got a lot of picks and a lot of different angles for the games. Plus, like I said, we'll throw in a little bit of NFL stuff as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to. There's something about Friday at Rufino's that puts me in a good mood. It means we're headed towards the weekend. We're headed towards the game. We're headed towards good food. So yes, definitely looking forward to Football Fridays coming back. All right, I went fast. Hunt Hill is straight ahead for Danny and Mario. I'm Charles Sanders saying thank you and good afternoon. It's been Hanny time. 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.